Hello everyone, and welcome to the official All Things Watched podcast, the place where we talk all things movies, television, streaming, and everything in between. And I am super excited to be back with another brand new episode of the 2024 FX series Shogun. And in this video we will be breaking down and reviewing episode 9, which was titled Crimson Sky. So let's just go right ahead and jump right in. Okay, so the episode actually starts 14 years ago, where we end up getting this flashback from Mariko, and we basically see when she was pregnant. Now, in this episode, we do know that she has a son, but I thought that she had a daughter as well, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she only has a son. I probably should have went back and rewatched a bunch of the other episodes beforehand, but I really only went back and watched this one, but maybe I should have played catch up a little bit better. But it is confirmed here in this episode that she has a son, but the significance of this episode, I think, or of this opening sequence of them showing us what she did 14 years ago, is sort of symbolic to where she ends up by the end of this episode, which is essentially her trying to escape but never really being able to be free, at least not 100% and not fully. So I really love seeing this flashback. I believe they even used the same actor to portray her in the flashback, because it was only 14 years ago. Anna Sawai, I apologize if I'm butchering that name. Chances are I suck with words and names. English was always my weakest part in school. I'm better with numbers than words, so so anyways, I apologize if I'm butchering her name, but she does a phenomenal job at portraying Mariko. And of course, so I really enjoyed seeing this opening sequence, and it was also really cool to see a bunch of snow. I personally am I live pretty far up north, so it was kind of cool to see the snow and whatnot, so I really enjoyed that. So anyways, that opening sequence was really cool, and then it basically jumps right back to present day, and then we see Mariko, and she's here with John and Yabushigi, and he's basically telling them that basically explaining the whole process of everything that's going to happen. Once they get to Osaka, they will be met by Ishido's men. Of course, he's mainly referring to him and Blackthorn right now, because they are the two that will go first. And so he actually ends up going and telling John, he goes and approaches him, and he says, hey, tomorrow we're going to be when we get to Osaka, we'll be approached by Ishido's men, basically explaining to them that they'll be taken in. Ishido will want to talk to them. I don't know if he'll go as far as interrogate them, but he will want to talk to them and meet them, so to speak, and they will be essentially, I guess you could say, essentially they will become almost like prisoners and whatnot. So basically, all we see here is that Yubashigi is basically explaining all of this to Mariko and John. And so then the following day they do get there, and everything that Yabushigi says basically comes true. And here you can see Ishido is waiting, and they all go inside of this really big room and whatnot. And so when they get there, Ishido looks at them and he's like, hey, welcome Yushiba, welcome to Osaka. And Yubashigi goes ahead and says, hey, I brought you a gift. And of course that gift is what they call the Ajin, which is of course John Blackthorn. So he's going there basically presenting himself. Well, I think honestly, if I'm realistically, I believe Yabushigi is actually a little naive in this sequence, because he's sort of back and forth. He's sort of been playing, walking a fine ledge between Toranaga and Ishido, and I feel like he just, for this whole series, all he has been trying to do is survive. So he's just walking this very fine line, trying to survive, whether he has to flip-flop with Ishido or with Toranaga. He's just trying to stay alive. But I think he's being a little bit naive here, because I'm sure that Ishido promises him, says, hey, if you bring me the agent, if you bring me Toranaga, if you bring me Mariko, I'll spare your life and whatnot. But I really don't believe Ishido. I don't, and not only do I not believe Ishido, but I also don't really trust Yabushigi. He's just too much of a liability, and I think everybody knows it. I think Mariko knows it. I think that Ishido and also Toranaga know it. So anyways, he goes ahead, comes to Osaka, and brings John with him, and then tells Ishido that he is the gift. And then shortly after they arrive, during the conversation that Ishido is having with, with Yabushigi and with John, really Yabushigi, because John can only speak a little bit of Japanese. Of course, Mariko ends up making her grand entrance, and I love everything about this. Mariko is definitely the star of this episode for sure. Her performance really shone. She's really standing up to the honor code, especially like once they sort of take her in, not so much as a prisoner. Ishido can never admit that she's actually a prisoner because it sort of goes against the code, which I think it's why it's so appropriate that this episode was called Crimson Sky, because the last episode ends with Toranaga telling Mariko that her time has come now. It's time for her to step in and sort of, play her part into this grand plan that Toranaga has. Remember, Toranaga is probably the smartest of all these clans and everything, at least right now at this moment. Toranaga is undoubtedly the mastermind. He is playing this, he's playing Ishido just like he's playing a game of chess, and he is absolutely winning Toranaga. He sees so far ahead. And so when Mariko gets here, I really love their back and forth. She actually calls Ishido out by the end of the conversation. As you can see with the subtitles, it says, "Unless we are confined here." So, she's basically saying, hey, we should all be free to go, unless you're saying that we're not. And of course, this is because she's sort of playing the honor code. He really has no authority, and she answers to a different lord. So technically, in the case of this Japanese culture, they are supposed to sort of they are obliged by this code, and technically it is sort of an honor system, so he sort of has to respect Toranaga, at least until Toranaga arrives and he's able to actually arrest him. Mariko has some great dialogue here, some great speeches telling Ishido, that she's going to be leaving in the morning. She says that she still answers to Toranaga, and really Mariko is Operation Crimson Sky. Toranaga sent her in here for multiple reasons. One, she knows the politics, she knows the codes, she knows the laws, the rules, but also she can also sympathize with the religious factions of Osaka, which is, of course, at this point in time, or at least in this show, they're proclaiming to be Christian. And so this actually plays a big role later on when they sort of won't let her leave and surrounds her, and she has to sort of fight her way out. She really plays into that Christian religious role that they're all supposed to be, sort of listening to, especially Ishido, who's the leader. He's supposed to be embracing all the different factions, all the clans and cultures. He's supposed to be leading them and not discriminating against any of them, but he's also supposed to be bound by the honor codes and all these, sort of rules and whatnot. And just really codes of honor, really. And so, of course, once Mariko tells Ishido, hey, I'm going to be leaving here and I'm going to be walking out here tomorrow morning, Ishido sort of calls her out, and she says, he says, you will await the meeting of the regents. So that, of course, is basically sort of like his personal council, and for the most part, he has pretty well everybody on that council paid off. They are going to vote in favor of him every time. Even Toranaga's brother is on here, which we've seen. The brother came during the time when Toranaga's son is killed. Now, although it is technically an accident, it was an accident, but at the same time it wasn't an accident. Toranaga's son should not have been killed. And this is something else that Mariko says to Ishido. She says to him, Toranaga is still in mourning, he still mourns his son and all that good stuff. And so, really everything that we've seen throughout the whole series so far is now coming into play for this Crimson Sky and for the finale of the series. And of course, Mariko basically calls him out and says, hey, I'm leaving no matter what. So then afterwards, once sort of this meeting ends up coming to a conclusion, Yabushigi ends up going and speaking to Mariko, sort of asking her, hey, like, what were you doing? What is the idea? What is Toranaga's plan? And Mariko, kind of says, oh, she kind of plays the dumb card, because I don't think Mariko, not because she is dumb, but she sort of, I think honestly she knows how Yabushiki is, how unloyal he is, how flip-floppy he is, how he can't be trusted, and she sort of denies and says, you know, oh, I don't really know what I was doing, and he calls her out on it, and he says, you knew exactly what you were doing, and whatnot. And you know, it was just such a cool back and forth, and I really enjoyed a lot of that stuff. So then later on, Mariko ends up going, and this is where Mariko ends up going and actually meeting meeting her son. And I really did think that she had a daughter as well, but I could be wrong. Maybe she doesn't have a daughter, but anyways, this is her son, and she goes to him basically, you know, I guess it almost kind of feels like a final farewell, but he really rejects Mariko. He rejects the fact that she's still so loyal to Toranaga, even though she's really only doing what she's supposed to based on these honor codes and whatnot, and their, you know, just this whole way of living and their culture and whatnot. And it really seems like there's a lot of friction between him and her and whatnot, and it gets to the point where he actually says that he's ashamed of her and ashamed of her actions. And honestly, I thought that was pretty cold. I mean, I understand the fact that, you know, they do live by a certain code. There is a certain way that, you know, they like to do things and whatnot, but I just thought that, I mean, no matter how bad it got, I just don't know. Like, I can't really put myself into that position, because I don't know what it's like to be alive during this time period, and I don't know what it's like to be born and raised into this type of Japanese culture during this time period. But I just can't imagine going against my own mother no matter what. I just don't know, you know. I feel like no matter how bad it got, or no matter what my mother has done, I just don't feel like I would go against her the way that Mariko's son goes against her here in this scene. So, you know, she, you know, says that her loyalty is to Toranaga, and you know, he really is ashamed of it, and basically walks away from her, turns his back on her, and yeah, I just thought that whole sequence was very interesting, and I can't imagine going against my own mother like that. I know I wouldn't do it, but like I said, I didn't grow up in this culture during this time period, so I don't really know. But it was still, a part of me wonders, was this like the final straw for Mariko? Was this where she was sort of, did this push her to the point to really be like, I have nothing to lose? Or was she expecting this? Because I don't really feel like she's surprised here. I don't ever get the impression that she's surprised by his actions or by his reactions. I just felt really bad for her, but I don't think that she was surprised by this. Now, I could be totally wrong, but I feel like she knew that he was going to reject her. But anyways, after that for the most part, pretty sad interaction, we didn't get to the point where Mariko is now saying, this is the following morning, of course, you know, and she's now basically going to leave. And this is where Operation Crimson Sky really takes in effect. You know, Crimson Sky is essentially supposed to be about the idea where, you know, it's sort of like this full-on attack where you rush, where, you know, Toranaga was going to rush Osaka and just take it over quickly by brute force. But when you really think about it, and after seeing all this episode and letting it sink in, you realize you realize that for Toranaga, Crimson Sky is not about this full-blown rush in to take over Osaka. It's actually about sending in Mariko and destroying them from the inside out, but not physically, but in the sense of loyalty. He sent her in here because he wanted her to destroy the loyalty of Ashiru. You know, the greatest way to defeat a nation is to make a nation divided amongst itself, so to speak, and that is exactly what Mariko's objective is here. And so here she stands with all of her guards. She is going to leave, and obviously she knows that there's going to be a bunch of resistance from Ashiru, which will undoubtedly and directly force her to not be able to follow the orders of Toranaga. But by preventing her to leave, that automatically makes her go against her lord. And so we get this really cool, absolutely brutal sequence, but it was a really cool fighting action sequence here. So she gets up to the gates. Ashido's men are there, and they look at her straight in the eye and they say, "Hey, do you have a permit to leave?" Ashido basically has everything on lockdown, and he's like, "Hey, nobody's leaving this place without a permit," and he has basically taken full control of the entire Osaka nation, or this entire region. And he because I think he is afraid of Toranaga, but I think he really underestimated Toranaga here by him sending in Mariko, and of course they refuse to let her go. So then her guards, or her loyal guardians, whatever you want to call them, they of course have to attack, because she's saying we're leaving and they're saying no, you're not. So she's like, okay, we're just going to fight our way through this. And it was just an awesome sequence with great action, and honestly it was really fun and really cool. I had a lot of fun watching this. It was honestly, it was just a blast. And so it gets to the point where all of her guards ends up getting killed, although they do end up taking out a couple of Ishido's men as well. But it gets to the part where Mariko has to actually step in and fight on her own. And of course this is this is where she's really going to force the other leaders who are following Ishido to really question the code, and really to question their loyalty and whether or not they are loyal to the right person, because Mariko is just simply doing what she's told, returning to Toranaga, but Ishido is going against that, not allowing her to serve her master, even though, because he technically has a warrant out for Toranaga's arrest, but Toranaga is not arrested yet, and he's still in the process of mourning his dead son, which also Ishido has really has no remorse over. He literally makes a comment in this episode. He's like, hey, Toranaga has many sons, this one son is not his only son. But at the same time, I don't think Ishido is completely wrong. Toranaga, he's not that beat up over his son being killed. He's definitely using his son being killed as a pawn, so to speak, or as a move to take down Ishido. So Mariko does this awesome fighting sequence, and then and this is actually where she plays the Christianity card, and she looks up at one of the Christian leaders and says, well, if you will not let me leave, you're forcing me to dishonor my Lord, therefore I will take my own life at sunset. Now some of them are calling her bluff, and they don't believe that she will actually do it. But then, as you can see here later on in the scene, when it's Ishido and I can never remember that lady's name. Ishido and is it Ochiba? Is it Ochiba, or I can't remember her name. I think it's Ochiba, but I could be wrong. But when he's there with her, she actually says, no, Mariko is not bluffing. She is absolutely going to take her own life. She will do what she says, because she knows, she's not a fool. She knows that Mariko is only here to prove a point, and this is essentially how the so-called, Operation Crimson Sky, so to speak, this is how it sort of goes into effect. And this is what I was saying, this is Toranaga's version of Crimson Sky. It's not a full-fledged, full-on assault or attack onto Osaka. It's Mariko, sending Mariko in to make, to sort of fraction the nation of Osaka. And so then later on we see Mariko then going and having a meeting with this lady, with the woman who she claims and actually tells John Blackthorne, because John is here as well, and she actually tells John that these two when they were growing up, they were almost like sisters. And Ishido's woman is trying to convince Mariko that what she's doing is just silly, that it's foolish, and that she shouldn't take her own life, and that it's just silly, and that they're only playing games. And Mariko's like, I'm not playing games, you're playing games, and you are the one you're the one accusing me of playing games, but also you're the one who can help bring an end to these games. And she actually says, one of my favorite lines of the whole series, she says, death does not mean surrender. So she's very committed, she's going to take her own life, and I really love how she says that to her, and it was so cool. And so here we see, now we go back to Yabushiki, and he's here talking to you know, talking to, I guess, one of Ishido's men, once again trying to play both sides of the fence because he's a coward. He doesn't want to die. He knows Toranaga is not going to win this, so, you know, he's basically like, hey, your offer of service instead of death, basically saying, hey, if you're willing to help us, and basically help us infiltrate Mariko and her clan overnight, then rather than giving you death, you know, be of service and we'll let you live, essentially is what she's saying. So of course sunset comes, because which also, by the way, goes to show that Ishido also has started to create a plan. He knows that if Mariko ends up taking her own life, then that also will inspire somewhat of a revolt, somewhat of a rebellion against him and his clan, because people are going to be like, wow, like, she's so honorable. People are just going to follow her because of her sacrifice. Essentially, she will become like a martyr. So now Ishido puts in place his own plan where rather than her kill herself, he will try to kill her by sending in assassins and just say that it was, he'll probably blame it on a different clan or something like that. So here they are getting ready. Here Mariko is getting ready to take her own life, and she actually wanted the Christian leader to be the second, which means once she falls, he'll have to cut off her head, which essentially kills her. I would assume that this is like something humane or something, or maybe it's a form of dishonoring someone by beheading them. I'm not really sure, but a part of their culture is that when they take their own life under this rule, they have to have a second, and the second usually beheads the person after they fall and whatnot. And so, but before the Christian leader really does it, and before Mariko does it, John comes in and is like, hey, I'll be your second, don't worry, I'll do it. And then Mariko's like, okay, no worries, just wait until I actually fall before you cut my head off. And so then, just as they are actually about to do it, Ishido comes in and basically stops the whole ordeal, telling her that she has a permit now in which she can leave in the morning. But like we said, Ishido always has something up his sleeve, and this of course is not really accurate. And so what ends up happening is Yabushigi and John and Mariko ends up getting infiltrated and attacked during the night. And of course we get once again an awesome action sequence. You see John, he actually pulls out his pistol, he's shooting, which is really fun to see John using his weapons and sort of the English European style of fighting versus the samurai who are all trained, you know, obviously with the sword. And so it was really cool to see that whole action sequence and whatnot. But like we said, their job here is to kill Mariko, and then we get to the very end of the episode, or to the finale of the episode, and of course it ends with a big bang, literally with a huge explosion while Mariko is standing next to the door, and that's basically where the episode ends. Now, personally for me, I have no idea, I haven't seen the finale yet, so I have no idea how it's going to end. But I think that if you want to make it, you know, the only way that this show can be even a little bit realistic is I think Mariko has to die. I just do not see how she could have survived this blast. She absolutely needs to have, there's no way she can survive this. And I would make an argument that maybe even John and whatnot, like all those folks that was in there with them, even Yabushigi, like I feel like they all need to be very seriously injured. This was a big explosion. Mariko was right next to the door, so she definitely shouldn't survive. But I think that there's a fair argument to be made that even the others should be very seriously injured. But man, what an awesome action sequence. Absolutely loved this episode, and I really thought that the title was very appropriate, Operation Crimson Sky. It really makes sense. This was Toranaga's plan the whole time, to really try and dismember Osaga from the inside out, try to question Ishido's loyalty, and that is exactly what they have done here. And I believe that there were actually comments throughout this episode, either this episode or the previous episode, I can't remember, where they actually say, you know, just send in a woman and they'll take care of the whole thing. So I really loved this episode as a whole. Can't wait to see the finale. I thought that this was an absolute phenomenal way to set up a finale. I'm really excited to see how it's going to end. How is Toranaga going to get out of this? I do know that this is based on a book, and I never read the book, but to my understanding, all of this season is based on the entire book, so I'm assuming that there will be some form of conclusion. However, I thought I seen online that they did already renew this series for 2 more seasons, so I can only assume that that will advance the story past the books, because if this episode is based on the books, then there has, of the one book, because there is only one book, then I would assume that they will have to actually write season 2 and 3 and come up with their own story or whatnot. But overall, I absolutely love this episode. Can't wait to see the finale. Mariko has to die. I hope Yabushige gets what he deserves and what's coming for him. He's too flip-floppy, unloyal, untrustworthy. He needs to go away. I hope John somehow is able to escape and get his freedom, get his boat, or get back to England. I really don't see how. I have no idea how this could happen at this point, whether he stayed with Ishido or he stayed with Toranaga. I have no idea how he could, I have no idea how this could end for him, or how, if it can even end for him in any other way. Is it even possible for him to have his freedom at this point, or will he be forced to die? I don't know how it's going to end, but I do think that he will be loyal to Toranaga. So I'm very curious to see, will he be allowed to use the fleet? All throughout the series, he's been arguing and sort of fighting for the right to use sort of like a naval fleet to fight back against Ishido. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. I absolutely love this episode. I've loved this series. This was definitely my favorite series of 2024. By far my #1 series for 2024. And I can't wait to see where the finale goes. Can't wait to see how it ends with Toranaga, with Ishido, and of course, John Blackthorn. Very sad to see Mariko go, but at the same time, it was very appropriate. She really played a very important role in the whole series, but she also plays a very important role here with the Operation Crimson Sky. So, she really, she was, however this ends, even if Toranaga loses and is not able to take over Osaka, even if he doesn't become the official Shogun, there's no doubts that Mariko played a very important role for the finale, leading into the finale, and I can't wait to see where everything goes from here. So overall, loved it. Can't wait to see the finale. Let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. What did you think of the episode? What did you think of this series? Please don't put any spoilers down here from the finale. I haven't seen it yet, so please don't ruin it for me and whatnot. But I really want to know your thoughts and opinions. Did you like this episode? I thought it was probably the best so far of the series, and I can't imagine how good the finale is going to be. If this episode was that good leading into the finale, I can't imagine how good the finale itself will be. But I can't wait to see it and all that good stuff. And yeah, so let me know if you like this kind of thing. Click that subscribe button, or if you're listening on Spotify, click that follow button. All that good stuff. And that's pretty well all I got. So until the next video, take care.